Conformation versus balance. Okay? Or I'm not a big fan of using the word balance. I'd rather use hoof mechanics, but for this purpose, we can sort of interchange them. Okay? Conformation describes the size and shape of the structures and the way they're arranged. In other words, from the fetlock down, or take it from the knee down. Okay? This is what refers to form anatomy, what the animal was born with. Okay? It's influenced by genetics and how you raise it, whether it's raised in the stall or whether it's raised outside or whether you do both or whatever. You really can't change it. Now, if we look at hoof mechanics or we look at hoof balance, we're talking about limiting to the foot. And we're talking about how the hoof relates to the skeletal structures of the limb, especially the digit, P1, P2. It's influenced by genetics. It's influenced by development, how much the hoof grows, and is really influenced by trimming and shoeing, because we can change that hoof balance immediately by just what we do to the bottom of the foot, and it can change rapidly. Okay, so let's look at how we can form an orientation or dorsopalmar balance. In other words, with the foot. In other words, some kind of application that we can apply to all horses. Okay, we talked earlier about let's put a hoof pasture and axis in there. Okay? And we have a straight digit here. It's in a straight line. Okay? And now we have the front of the pastern, and we have the dorsal or the front of the hoof wall. This is a straight line, or it's parallel. Okay? Now let's take an imaginary line. Whoops. That's what we're looking at there. Okay. Now let's take an imaginary line, run it through the cannon bone to the ground. It should fall back at the heel area of your hoof capsule. In other words, at the hoof wall at the heel. Okay? Doesn't always happen, but that's what we would like. Now, if we take this line, we take the solar surface and the angle of the toe, combine it with the hoof pastern axis, we've got a triangle, don't we? This is orientation that we can apply to any horse. In other words, from his foot to the digit above. This will work on anything. Okay? And then you can see if we take that triangle, now let's put a circle around there. Now look how this is influenced by what we do to the bottom of the horse's foot. Okay? Okay. Let's turn it around and let's look at the medial lateral orientation, or from side to side. Okay? How can we relate the foot to the digit this way? Well, let's draw an imaginary line through the middle of the cannon bone to the ground. Okay? Now if we take a horizontal line, okay, at the coronary band or at the ground, we'd like that horizontal line to hit on two spots, wouldn't we? Okay? Boom, boom. Not up here or this high or that high or whatever. We'd like to have some symmetry or some uniformity. Okay? We can apply this to all horses. Okay? And this is what it looks like in real life. Now here's the third perspective. Let's look at the bottom of the foot. This is one of the things we leave out a lot of times, and some of the things that farriers don't think about. We can look at this foot. Again, we're going to put the center of rotation in there. That's the widest part of the foot. Okay? And we want the foot basically as wide as it is long. All feet. Barefoot or shod, we want it to be as wide as it is long. Okay? Then if we look over at this side, again, we look at the frog. We like to have the frog width be at least 60%, 70% of the length. We want a nice heavy frog, because if you have a nice heavy frog, you usually got good heels, don't you? Okay? Want them to work together. This is what we like it to look like. Again, widest part of the foot, basically as wide as it is long. Nice heel base. If you put a rasp across here, it touches all the structures. It doesn't touch the frog or this or whatever. It touches the whole thing. Have a base there. Okay? Same thing if we put a shoe in there. Widest part of the foot, basically as wide as it is long. There's your breakover right there. We lack sometimes a method of communication because the term hoof balance is widely used. Okay? And it lacks a universal definition. It's more of a concept. I could tell you, well, I'm going to balance that horse's foot. Or the guy said, well, I balanced that horse's foot, Doc. Well, what does it mean? It sort of means, balance means something different to everybody that's using it. Horse, veterinarian, farrier, owner, whatever. So it may be worth our while to think of something like landmarks or hoof mechanics that we can use universally when we approach a horse's foot for shoeing or foot care. Okay? again, if you look at this particular foot here, okay, I want you to think about mechanics, because what balance would mean in this situation here is that all these parts work together. And if that horse is standing still, that all these parts are in equilibrium. In other words, one force opposes another. So we may be thinking again, and what we're going to finish off here with is the center of articulation, hoof pastern axis, where our breakover is, and especially the ground surface of the foot to the base of the frog. In other words, if we can't trim it to the base of the frog, we can bring our shoe to the base of the frog. We can get it one way or another. Okay, let's look at it again mechanically. Here again, if you have your, which we start out with, if you have your digit in a straight line here, okay, and then we have a parallel hoof pastern axis, okay? And if we have a parallel hoof pastern axis, we have the weight on the whole bottom of the bone. We don't have it this way or that way. Let's put our center of rotation there. There's our mechanical foot. This can be applied to any foot you approach. Here again, if let's look at a radiograph. Here's a shoe on, here's your breakover, here's your heel length, okay? Here's your center of rotation. Again, the distal end or the lower end of P2. Okay, right in that condyle, bring it to the ground, and that's a thing called Duckett's bridge. And Dave Duckett is a farrier from England, one of the most brilliant people I've ever seen. He came up with Duckett's bridge, Duckett's dot. A lot of farriers use them, but they don't apply them. They know about it. This is Duckett's bridge. Okay. The effective shoes on a horse, they provide protection, they decrease energy absorption because you have an interface between the ground and the foot. They alter the pattern of the wear. In other words, when we put a shoe on, the horse wears his foot the way we want it, not the way he wants it, okay? And they're going to influence movement, or there wouldn't be this controversy about no shoes, aluminum shoes, steel shoes, titanium shoes, whatever. Think about the horse's foot as a leaf spring. And this is the whole foot. Now, if you go ahead and when this horse bears weight, that whole foot is going to expand to some degree. Okay? Now we go ahead and let's stick some nails in there in a horseshoe. Okay? We're going to fix that area with the horseshoe. But we're still going to expand back at the heels. Okay? And you can still shoe horses in a very physiological manner. Okay? Because we're in the middle of a barefoot movement. You can still shoe horses. But there is a change. I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're not. And if I had my way, and if I can do it, I'm going to have a horse without his shoes on. Okay, vets and farriers, they can do a lot together. Okay, let's move on here. Let's go ahead and look at some other things. We're going to go back through the same thing, but I want to look at some foot conformation with you. Again, let's look at here again is our foundation. Here's your deep digital flexor tendon, your superficial. Here's your suspensory hanging on here. Okay? Let's put some soft tissue in there. Okay? And then let's put a hoof capsule around it. But what I want to emphasize again is, okay, you want to contain the bone and the soft tissue within the hoof capsule. Okay? They need to work as a unit. Okay? When you start to go forward, lose the ground surface back here, you're heading for trouble.